Good evening, everyone. So thank you all so very much for joining us today. I think that the topic that we're looking to cover today is so topical and important, and I look forward to the discussion that comes from it. And we're fortunate enough to have David Pease, who is just you're going to just see, he's going to open his mouth and you'll know exactly why we asked him to be here today. But as Julie said, I'm the chair of Realize Maine Network Steering Committee, and we are a young professionals group that is comprised of other young professionals groups that operate statewide to bring, to breathe life into our communities and showcase really the assets that each of our regions has to offer to employers and seeking employees. So we want to make sure that Maine is seen as the jewel that it is, and we have so many great assets to do that with. And so that's what the young professionals groups from Realize Maine Network do. So if you have a young professional that you work with, or if you are a young professional, I would encourage you to seek out the local group for you and become a part of that and see really what it's all about at the ground level. And if you're looking for information on how to join one of these groups or what group is in your area, please go ahead and put that in the chat, and we will get you in contact with somebody to reach out for more information. I want to put a thank you to all of our groups for spreading the word about this event and for being here today. So without further ado, David Pease is the Senior Vice President and Director of Talent and Diversity and Inclusion at Bangor Savings Bank. His human resource career spans 30 plus years in business, nonprofit, healthcare, academia, and corporate America. He has a master's degree in human resource management from Lesley University, a BS in political science and communication from the University of Southern Maine. David also has a senior professional in human resource and the senior certificate professional degree from the national designation. I probably messed that up, David, and I apologize.
Okay.
He's very good at human resources. He's been on the faculty of the Maine HR Convention for 15 years and served as an adjunct faculty member in Thomas College Graduate School. David is a former state director of the Maine SHRM and received the Distinguished Maine HR Leader of the Year Award. He is a frequent speaker at the state and national conferences. He sits on several boards and advisory groups focusing on workforce, education, equality, and engagement. David serves as a mentor and coaches to numerous professionals in all stages of their career. And thank you so much, David, for being here. Take it away.
Take it away. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Molly and Julie, for the invite and for being with you all today. I love Realize Maine. I love what you're doing. It's so important from the very start of your careers to begin having a voice and help shaping the future. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to definitely share a few slides with you to make sure we all have some fundamental shared knowledge. But I really want to kind of create this as a dialogue. And we definitely will break out into some small groups so that you all can start problem solving, not today's workforce stuff, because we're already in the present, but we do have a lot of changes coming up over the next 10 years. So you all have an ability to really think about how you're going to contribute to really helping, to positively impact Maine's workforce, and also how you might be able to assist your companies and organizations to have better success with talent in the future. So that is really what we're doing. At any time, please just share questions, and Julie will be monitoring for me. And again, I hope to go through my slides really quickly so we can spend most of the time in dialogue. So the first is actually audience participation. So it's a pretty small group. So I guess you can verbalize it if you want, or feel comfortable if you don't want to verbalize it, to use the chat. how would you define in just one or two words, what is the current state or situation of Maine labor? What are you hearing in your organizations about the Maine workforce and just labor in Maine currently? I'm seeing some chat. Julie, do you want to read those off? I'm seeing a lot of chat.
Yeah, covering a lot of ground. Definitely aging, shortages. Matthew says tired and exhausted.
It's true. That is true. That's the other thing we need to remember, right? A career is 40 years plus, right? So we need to make sure that we don't burn ourselves out by the age of 30. So we do need to learn how to pace ourselves in our careers, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's see, loss of young talent. Not enough skilled workers. Not enough opportunities for new Mainers. And bandwidth issues.
Yeah, you guys captured a lot of the issues. So, and these are not new issues, right? These are issues we've been working on for at least 10 years in the state of Maine. They're just getting worse. And certain industries and certain companies are having it more difficult, but these are really issues we've been dealing with for a number of years. And I'm really excited because when I got to create my job, sort of as talent and diversity officer for Bangor Savings Bank, one of the things I get to do is look at not BSB talent, but how do I help Maine ensure that we do keep the talent that already exists here, and how do we bring and import talent from other states and other countries? So that's stuff I get to work on every day. So hopefully I can share some of those stories with you. So I just pulled a couple of headlines from just things I read this week. So, I mean, I just noticed like, oh my gosh, what a great weekend, July 4th weekend. Businesses see a huge increase in tourism. Unfortunately, there's a workforce shortage. So we're seeing that only about 46% of employees have half or fewer employees that they need. 37% of businesses are reducing hours of operation because of staffing. And again, just a reduction of business capacity. And 70% expect to have a loss. So even though there's an increase in business, they are going to see a loss in revenue because of not having the staff needed. So that was pretty depressing to see that we've kind of rebounded from COVID, but because we don't have workers here. And then again, right after looking at that, I read this from our US Commerce Secretary that the aging population is going to hit the US economy like a ton of bricks. So again, this is not just a Maine issue, this is clearly a US issue, and to be honest with you, it's really a world issue. So pretty much every continent except for one is going to have labor shortages over the next 10 years. So, so those are things that we need to know. I also pulled this out. I thought this was, it was a little lengthy, but it's pronounced demographic shifts will have major implications for Maine's future. And this was something that actually was written in 2005 under Governor Baldacci. So for some of you, you probably don't even know who that is. But again, this was 16 years ago. Governor Baldacci had this huge study, and clearly at that point in time, the state of Maine knew that we were in dire straits. So for as, you know, as scary and as frustrating as I know a lot of business owners are here in the state of Maine, this is something we knew about. And a lot of organizations have prepared for it. And a lot of organizations did not realize, I think, the true issue that was coming to us. But to be honest with you, I've been dealing with understanding that we would have a labor shortage by 2010 since I began my career, which started 35 years ago. So that's the bad, you know, that's kind of the bad news, is we knew all of these predictions for what the workforce would look like. And these are predictions. So if you quickly look at this list, you'll see that not all of them have come to fruition yet, but they are still trends, and they are still things that may be coming by 2030 if they have not yet happened. But clearly we knew there would be a shortage. We know that both individuals, their individual reputation and company reputation are critical in the talents. I tell a lot of people, I have not applied for a job in 25 years. And that's because people know who I am. And so when people are looking for HR folks, I get reached out to. So part of it for you individually is not only do you want to be a great employee internally, you also want to create this external presence and reputation, because it will make it easier for you to find employment if you choose to change what you're doing. But that is also true for employers. It is very important that employers are not just focusing on their service or product brand, but that they're also working on their employer brand. How are they, what is it like to work for them? Because I think the real question for some of these organizations that truly are only half staff is they need to answer the questions, why should I work for you? You know, that to me is one of the first things organizations need to decide. What am I offering you as an employee? It's not about what you can offer for me. That's kind of how this all started when I started 35 years ago. It was all about, we're going to pay you, we're going to give you a job, you can stay here for life. But that is not the current employment contract, right? The current employment contract is employees have, it is definitely an employee market. They can work for a lot of different companies. So what is it that each organization is going to do to really differentiate themselves and get the very best talent that Maine, the United States, has to offer? So this is something, that I just wanted you all to be aware of, that we knew this was coming, and some organizations didn't fully prepare for it. The good news is we also have some projections for 2030, and that's what I want to kind of do today after I give you a little bit more information, is what's happening, what is being forecast for 2030's work environment, and how can you all as young professionals decide how this is going, how you can help Maine and the economy at large improve and be better prepared for the next 10 years. So what I want to kind of do is, even though I'm a pretty good recruiter, there's no way that I could be recruiting for all of these organizations that currently don't have staff for this summer. I think a lot of people view recruiting as very much a reactive thing. Okay, I have an opportunity. Our summer business is opening, I need to add 3 people. And to me, we need to understand that recruitment is a very much a proactive and strategic effort. So the first thing you need to do is, if you think recruiting is simply filling a job, you need to kind of rethink about what this is. I'm planning for leadership opportunities 5 and 10 years from now. I am looking at what our organization is needing, and I'm looking at, since we do business in Maine and New Hampshire, what are the current statistics in terms of number of people, number of employees, that will be the number of people working, and how do we get the people we want for our organization. So the first thing we need to remember is that recruiting is not just a one-time reactive effort, it is strategic. So I just wanted to also share this. So when I was asked 3 years ago by our CEO to create a talent and diversity function for a bank or savings bank, I said, okay, I'd love to do it. And I got to create my own job. But to make sure that I understood what was ahead of us as a bank, I needed to look at, what does talent really mean? And as you can see, just by this model that I've shared with you, part of it is about workforce planning. So staffing, looking at demographics, understanding the level of competition, even the way we design jobs. How do I ensure that jobs are appealing to young professionals, that people are coming right out of college? How do we design some jobs to ensure that they can come in? Of course, we need to look at creating talent pipelines. And the most important thing is, organizations spend some energy maybe on external pools. you need to remember that you also have incredibly brilliant people like yourselves that maybe are starting out in your career, but how do we get you prepared for leadership roles that some of you will get really quickly because people my age will be leaving the workforce, over the next 5 years. So part of it is not only bringing people in, but how do we advance people and how do we prepare people for their second and third step? So when I'm hiring for people, I'm not just hiring them for their current job, I'm looking at what's their second step and what is the third step within the organization. And then of course, we have to look at it from a culture perspective. When we're talking about recruiting, we always need to consider retention. And finally, in our current environment that is getting much more diverse by the day, here in Maine, we have to look at what we need to do as organizations and really what we have to do as a state to be more welcoming to people from other states and other countries, because those people can work in any state in the union. So once people decide to come to Maine, we need to make sure that we are fully welcoming, and this whole concept of "you're from away" needs to be removed from our vocabulary, because that doesn't really help us in terms of importing talent. And believe me, there is not enough Maine talent to do all the work that we currently have. You also need to understand stats. I think a big part, like when we talk about diversity and we talk about labor shortages, all of this has been projected. I'm sure that somewhere in Maine and somewhere in the United States, they have forecasts probably through the next 40 years. So for most of your careers, they have information about what is the population, what percentage of the population are working, what is the age of the workforce. So right here you can see in 2030, the age demographics for the workforce. You'll see Gen Z is now becoming more prevalent in 10 years. Millennials are pretty strong. There's still a strong group of Gen Z, but boomers are pretty much out of the market. We also know that we have a significantly increasing diversity. So clearly the Hispanic population and the Asian population is growing. Black population is growing a bit. And we're seeing just much more bi and multiracial. And so again, even one of the things that we'll need to do with diversity is making sure that we don't work in these absolutes, right? To call somebody white or black when more and more people are multiracial or biracial, that people are male or female when we know that there are a lot of non-binary people, right? So we're definitely working in spectrums now, and we're working in less absolutes than we used to do. So along with trying to understand all of these changing statistics, there's also a lot of other dynamics going on. So the other thing to know is that about in any given organization, but again, this is from a national perspective, 26% of the workforce is actively disengaged. When I mean actively disengaged, they are actually harming your reputation and your business. They are working against other team players and they're working against your organization. And then you have another like 40% who are just kind of there doing the basics to get by. So only about 30% of your workforce are really fully engaged, willing to do extra work, willing to go the line for their team members and for customers. Another thing to understand is at any given time, 35% of the American workforce is looking for another job. So if all of this isn't challenging enough, then over a third of your workforce is looking for other work. And that's actually increased since COVID. So there's something I recently read that at least 50 to 60% of employees right now are considering other opportunities. And post-COVID is not because they're unhappy, but people are really reevaluating what is important to me. Do I want to work from home? Do I want to continue living in New York City? As most of you probably are aware, we have had a major influx of folks from large cities moving to Maine because they feel safer here. They feel like it's got a quality of life that maybe larger cities didn't have for them. So those are things that may benefit us, but also we have employees who've decided to move south or to decide to do a whole different sort of job or career than what they were doing. Along with that is we also have declining tenure. So when I started, people stayed for companies for 30 years. And clearly that is not the case anymore. The average American work tenure is 4.3 years. And for millennials, it's 2.8 years. So with all of this going on, you have to remember you have a large disengaged and a large group of people who will not stay for you for a long time. So as one of you said, we really, in some ways, have a skills gap. So we do have to come to the realization that we have a responsibility to do training to get people to where we want. It's something we've been doing now for at least 6 years, that we have an element of training to do with most employees coming on board. And that's pretty frustrating if they're only going to stay with you for 12 months or 18 months. So again, one of the things we want to do as an organization is what can we do to ensure that we can extend tenure beyond the average, because that will give us a competitive advantage as an organization. So again, I wanted to just kind of share some basic recruiting perspectives from my angle or my view, and then a couple of retention, and then we'll turn the floor kind of back to you all. So the first thing I need to say is most organizations' recruitment process is broken. If you've applied for a job recently, people don't respond to you. You submit your application online, and 5 minutes later you're rejected. So no one's looked at your resume. It's just something that has been automatically set up that your words didn't match what the program wanted. And even when you have the benefit of being interviewed, sometimes people never hear what the status of their candidacy is. It's taking a really long time. And then even people who are finalists for jobs never really know why they didn't get the job. So it's a really bad experience for most people. And one of the things that organizations can do, and a lot of times people are, well, Bangor Savings Bank's a pretty big company, you have resources. And I would say, you can be the smallest company in Maine. If you can get the candidate process, so anyone interested in working for you, if you can make it VIP where they feel good applying, even if you've rejected them, they're going to come back and apply again. And as you can see in this stat, is that if somebody has had a bad experience with you, you only get one shot. 83% of people will not come back a second time to apply for you. They're also going to tell friends and family members about the bad experience, which is going to harm other applicant flow. And more importantly, is they may just sort of say, I don't want to do business with that company because they didn't even treat me very respectfully, or they didn't treat me like a human during the process. So fixing a recruitment process, really making sure that applicants are being treated like VIP, like your most important customer, I think is one way that companies can really differentiate themselves. The other thing is that one of the big things, a lot of times, we expect an awful lot from our managers. And I believe that one of the most important roles for a manager is to teach them how to be a talent scout. I see a couple of management trainees that work with me. They've been on board for 6 weeks, and they've already received talent scout training. Because I believe it's so important to get anyone in a leadership role to help the organization identify really great talent. So I think that's one thing that organizations need to do a better job, is teaching, just like you would teach your salespeople how to go out and find prospects for your organization. Helping find talent really is a full court press by an organization, not just done by HR or a hiring manager. And like good business, it may take several years for you to get a piece of business. Sometimes the best talent take a lot of time as well. So when I'm meeting people and doing networking events, I will sort of ask people, what do you do? Are you happy doing what you're doing? And if it's somebody that I'm really interested in, I keep following up. How's everything going at work? And at some point in time, maybe the person will say, I'm thinking about making a change. And that's when I would start talking about, why they might want to work for Bangor Savings Bank. But so again, good talent is not just something you get at the minute. It's you identify who are some of the best people in the state of Maine or in New England who do the work that you do, and try to identify them. As I said before, your brand and your culture is what you're marketing. That's why people are going to want to work for you, or why they're not going to work for you. So if you have a bad reputation as an employer, it's going to be really hard to find good talent. And so branding is really, really important. Obviously, the best recruitment method is retain your current people, right? If you have a higher percentage, like the banking industry, I think like for tellers, the average turnover for the industry is about 25%, and our turnover is at 10%. For tellers. So again, when your retention rate is double what the industry is, that's a competitive advantage, right, for your organization. Young, as you know, most of you are very, very young. Having community impact and making the world a better place is something critical to Gen Z workers, and you understand how you're doing with that. I think a big thing that I hear is still a lot of companies talking about, they want to find the perfect, they want to find like the absolute perfect person for a job. And the bottom line is there isn't a perfect person, because even if you find somebody with those skill sets, they may not fit your culture. And again, you're not just hiring them for that first job. How are they going to adapt and be resilient as your company grows and changes? So you really have to look at what you really need for this. I've already talked about the need to be proactive. And clearly, if you can fix your recruitment process, those are some of the best practices from my perspective for recruitment. I, of course, would be amiss, since I am now a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, we also need to work really closely together. This is a joint effort. Each organization can do their own sort of diversity efforts, but we really do have some incredible programs right now working together with like-minded companies, great community organizations, great educational institutions throughout Maine. And if you're not currently involved with Live and Work in Maine, Educate Maine, Junior Achievement, Hire a Vet campaign here in Maine, Diversity Hiring Coalition, those are some ways for you to get connected with some other great employers who are doing some amazing work around diversity. So retention, why are people leaving companies? One of the major reasons, especially people in Gen Z and millennials are leaving companies, is career development. They're hired. Actually, one of our interns, he just started his job 2 weeks ago. And he's like, David, I really need your advice. I'm like, I'm going, what's going on? And he's like, this company promised me a job. And right now, all I'm doing is cold calling. And I keep asking, when am I going to do other aspects of my job? And they're like, this is your job. So we still have a lot of organizations that are misleading people with what jobs are. And then when we get people, we don't continue to invest in them. If you want good people, people need to know they're going to have development and opportunities, or they're not going to come to work with you in the first place. And clearly, even if you do get them in your door, you will not retain them for a long time if you're not making constant investment in them. So again, all of these things are really important in terms of how can you be better for industry regarding retention. So again, I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. For any of you who might have attended the Magnetize Maine event that was with Matt at Uplift in Lewiston, Auburn in 2019, I shared some of this in my presentation there. But again, important for people at work. People want to know, what do I get? What do I give? Do I belong here? And how can I grow? So kind of remember these motivating factors when it comes to employees. If you can meet all of these needs, you will have a better chance of retaining people. I've also kind of created this magnet model that I've been working with managers for probably 15 years anyway. So I've used it at 3 different employers that I'm aware of. And this is what I believe are the major motivators for employees. And they haven't really changed that much over 30 years. Some of them have changed, but for the most part, this is pretty standard. People want to do meaningful work, right? You want to come to work and you want to make a difference. You want to have an impact. You want to know that what you're doing is valued. And then when you do great work, you want to be appreciated for it, right? You want to, get a bonus, or you want to get praise or just a nice thank you letter for doing something really great. You also need to know what your goals are. So for those of you like me that are very achievement oriented, I don't want to just meet my goals, I want to exceed them. But if I don't know what the goals of the organization are, it's pretty hard for me to exceed expectation. One of the biggest things that costs zero money, so again, this is not a resource thing, is how do you get every employee involved in decision making? And to me, this is one of the important things that I do with our interns, our co-op students, and management trainees who are brand new generally to the work environment, is to ensure that they have a voice, that their voice, although they may not have a lot of experience yet, their voice is really important. And we actually select them based upon having a unique, diverse voice that we know will benefit the bank as we try to solve problems. Obviously, people want to be paid well, but it's more about equity. So making sure that you're being paid fairly compared to market data, and that you're being paid fairly and equitably compared to other people in your own organization. And finally, people need a connection. It's not just coming in and doing work. You need to like the people you work. Basically, Gallup has said that if you have a best friend at work or have several people that you really rely on as your support group, these are ways to really engage people. So those are some of my kind of best practices for recruitment and retention. I see that we have at least 13 chat discussions. So I'm assuming some of those are questions, Julie. So do we kind of want to answer some of those right now?
Actually, those are the only ones I'm seeing are from your first question about what the workforce issues are. I'm not seeing anything new.
All right. So are there any questions that people would just like to maybe talk a little bit about on recruitment or retention? Or are you ready to sort of look at what's going to happen in 2030 and try to help solve what we are going to do in the next 10 years? All right, I'm going to move forward unless I hear, we'll have a chance for questions again at the end.
I see two new messages.
About what? I'm sorry, go Julie.
Two new messages just came in. So let's see. Matthew Shaw's asking, what is one key takeaway from Bangor Savings that has helped with limited turnover?
To limit turnover, I think it's about just creating a positive culture, a culture that people are proud of. You know, what is so exciting for me as somebody who gets to travel all over our footprint in Maine and New Hampshire, it's just so exciting to go to branches. You know, we have 60 locations in 2 states, and seeing our employees' excitement, their pride about working here, wearing a BSB, you know, shirt, and they do it with pride. And even what's more important is whenever I post anything the bank is doing on my social media, some of my friends, a lot of my friends are BSB customers. So whenever we do something really good, they're like, oh, that's my bank. That's really cool. So I think trying to create a sense of belonging and a sense of pride in your employees is one of the greatest gifts that you can really do in terms of not only attracting really great people who want to join that sort of culture, but also keeping the great people that already work for you.
We have a couple more questions.
Yep.
So Kristen Card is asking, what challenges have you / Maine experienced that are directly related to the pandemic, and how has Maine worked to address those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, the pandemic is going to change the future of workforce, right? So, I mean, obviously, one of the first things is just the whole concept of safety. So, you know, we just realized that kind of our commitment to creating a safe work environment, where in our minds, when we first made that commitment, was at 60 locations in 3 states. We realized that suddenly when we had 800 people working from home, we now realize that our safety now goes to communities, right? So I think there's a lot more merging between work and personal, right? Especially for people working from home, you've now created something really different than what I think we've seen prior to that. There's clearly a lot of tension right now for organizations in terms of returning employees to work. We believe our culture is so important that we made a choice to return our employees to work. So everyone has returned to work at this point in time, but we also know to create a safe work environment, we needed to get people vaccinated. So we quickly chose to pay people $500 to be vaccinated. So all employees were paid $500 in cash, and even new employees. So some of our management trainees who started on June 6th. As soon as they showed us a vaccination card, we gave them $500 in cash. On Friday, we're having a big barbecue here in Bangor, and we're actually doing a drawing for $10,000 for one lucky employee who's been vaccinated. And we currently have 84% of our workforce vaccinated. So obviously much better than what's happening in Maine and what's happening across the country. And I mean, I think the challenges though are people are going to be wanting to work from home. There's going to be a lot of tension between, still like all the responsibilities we have at home and all the responsibilities have at work. And how do we make sure that we're being more aware as an employer of the needs of employees? So we have increased our leave time. So we now have paid leave for anyone, for any mother or father, for maternity leaves. So we have a lot of employees now on 16 weeks of paid leave because we know that's really crucial. People with health issues, we're giving them 16 paid weeks, but even that for some employees is not enough. So how do we sort of continue to balance all the unique differences and needs of employees? Because again, part of it is trying to keep them whenever we can, but sometimes every resource we have is not enough for that individual. And so that is always a big challenge, right? To see really good people. We have also seen, probably this year, we've had the most retirements, probably combined. If we look at the retirements for the last 4 years, we have probably had more retirements this year because a lot of people are making the choice to enjoy their life. After pandemic, people are like, I want to enjoy my life. So where people might, where we saw before, might want to stay longer in work, a lot of people are choosing late 50s or early 60s to leave. And that's only going to create more challenges from a labor perspective or shortage.
Great. And then the final question that I'm seeing in chat is for you, David, but also for everyone here. Jessica Donovan is asking if there are any resources or connections for translators to help support employers with engaging the new Mainer community. She says they have some amazing employees with limited resources to communicate and engage with them at the same level as those who speak fluent English.
Yeah, is anyone on the call, do you have specific resources that you can sort of share?
I did put one in the chat. It's AA Language Services, and I put the website in there as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I think this is where partnership is really important, right? So again, being able to just share resources like that. So we really thank you for sharing that. And again, finding the right partners. Actually, it's not just BSB, it's been 5 financial institutions, which is now up to about 9 financial institutions, has been working with Portland Adult Ed, and we've been working with several groups now from the immigrant population to give them banking training and kind of getting them ready. And Portland Adult Ed is doing a lot around communications and career development and technical training. And the banks are providing a lot of banking knowledge, currency understanding, a lot of things. And over the last couple of years, we've placed 30 immigrants in the banking industry by just kind of doing some shared knowledge. But again, Portland Adult Eds are really helpful. And then things like the Greater Portland, Immigration Center and those kinds of resources can also be beneficial to you.
David, do you want to go into breakout soon?
Yeah, we definitely need to if we're going to have any time at all. So what we're going to do, are we still at about 20 people on, Julie? I can't really see all the people that we have on.
About 25.
Okay.
So I've created 5 breakout groups.
Fabulous. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into 5 groups. So what we're going to do is have 3 of the groups 1, 2, or 3. So if you are put into group 1, 2, or 3, what I want you to kind of talk about is what are some strategies that you can really focus on for 2030? What are some things we're going to need with the changing dynamics and some of the things we know that will be different in the future? And I didn't even review a lot of that with you. But you understand that there's a lot of things that are changing. And so we want those groups to kind of just quickly sort of brainstorm some really great ideas for recruitment strategies for you individually to do in your organizations. And then group 4 and 5, you'll focus on retention strategies. What are some things that you believe organizations need to do to really retain their employees in the year 2030? We're going to give you about 10 minutes, and then we're going to ask you to come back and just pick. So before you come back, we ask that you just pick 2 of your best thoughts, and that's kind of what you'll share with a full group when you come back.
Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good discussion. We don't have a lot of time left, about 10 minutes. So, but we did want to give you a chance to report back on just the top 2 ideas that came from your group. So we can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And whoever wants to be a representative for group 1 can go for it.
I guess I can be the representative for group 1. So it was about recruitment. We kind of shared experience that we had through interviews and we thought were meaningful. So the first one was follow-up letters, whether when a company hires you or do not hire you. When they did follow-up letters, that meant a lot to us. And the second one was asking personal question and experience during the interview process. We thought that was really meaningful. And the third one was easy application, which would be social media application. And also during the process, when the people got back to you, gave you quick feedback and there was good communication between you and the hiring team. And the last one was a very interesting one, which was giving relevant, very relevant activity for a specific job, an opportunity to showcase your skills and talent.
Those are great. Excellent. Thanks, Josephine, for sharing those. I think some of those are really great. And I think some organizations are doing some of those, but clearly not the majority of employers. Good job. Group 2?
I believe we were group 2.
Okay.
I apologize. We were having really great communication. We forgot that we were a number. So we were talking about strategic goals for specifically the hospitality and our skilled labor force. And one of the points that Amy had made is that we need to recruit and find education sources for those industries within our state. So she was saying that she had to go outside of the state to even get her hospitality management degree. So I think I thought that was really great. And it's one of the number 1 jobs out there that have openings is in the hospitality industry. So that's only going to get more of a need. And then another point that was made is that there are a lot of people coming to the state. They're probably bringing their families with them as well. And what are those people doing within that family? They're probably not all working remotely. And then those people that they come with will probably make families. And how do we inspire those folks to stay as well? So
those are outstanding. So Amy and Molly, great suggestions. I mean, clearly, one of the things our organizations have to do is clearly look at educational partners and people that can help them with training, because not every organization has the capacity to do their own training. But how do we sort of work with some educational partners? And your second point is spot on. This is something I've been talking about for 10 years. This is where we have to work with other employers. So if I'm recruiting, one of the people, say a couple to work at Bank or Savings Bank, I need to find, help them find a job for the spouse or significant other. And if it's a family with, as you said, teenage kids, then I need to connect with Amy and some hospitality groups or other places for high school students to work. So this is where we really need to work as communities to find employment for an entire family, right? And then, especially if the family is different and diverse, we also need to make sure that we connect them to a larger community. So I can recruit pretty much anyone to Bangor, Maine, but if they're Muslim and they have to travel to Portland to worship, or somebody is Indian and has to go to Portland to buy spices and foods that meet their diet, then that might not retain them in the community. So we do really have to work as a community to bring families in and to retain families in our communities. Great point. Team 3.
So we were talking about also recruitment, and one of the big things that we talked about was the barriers for even entry-level positions, and really trying to making sure that our organizations are reviewing them to try to eliminate as many barriers as possible and see the value in what offering education or digital badging or something like that can bring to a new employee, and what value and worth it will bring later on down the path of career.
Yeah, I think that one is excellent, Matt, because as you said, there are a lot of job descriptions that may not have even been revised for like 5 or 7 years. And some of the requirements that I've even seen in our own organization are well beyond what we need for minimum requirements. And so I'm just a big believer in how do we bring people into our organization, put them into a meaningful job, and then develop them while they're here to move into higher level jobs. I think that is a major strategy in terms of if you can start people with minimal skills and then develop into higher skills, that is a really great way to bring people in. And so there is some job design. There is definitely needs to be some real thoughtfulness for organizations to look at jobs and sort of not making the requirements so outrageous that you're cutting out a lot of prospective people who can easily do the job with a little bit of support and training. Great. So I think we're moving to retention. So group 4.
So our group talked about the need for a positive culture overall. And in doing so, we focused on 2 areas, one being transparency, and that being focused on studies of the millennial generation and Gen Z, and the overall need to understand the bigger picture and where their individual piece fits into the puzzle, and the need for numbers. You know, back in the day, it was more of on a need to know basis, whether that was shared. And we've seen shifts in that, and that's an area of retention that can be utilized. And the second area was more, David, you kind of mentioned it, showcasing opportunities and growth. And we talked about not only from the onset, but also as the employee onboards and goes through that process, the ability to showcase and communicate those constant opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I mean, and thanks so much for bringing that transparency. It is just something I am just hearing almost on a daily basis. And we're pretty transparent, but even with my own team, and several of them are on here right now, who are management trainees, I see one of our interns is here as well. You know, we've tried so hard to say, anything you want to know, just ask me, right? And I will always try to be super transparent about what's going on and what's happening and their status and information they need. So, but it is really hard, right? It's really hard for some organizations, especially if historically they haven't done it. But I think it's really important. And clearly, for younger professionals, growth and advancement and development are crucial. And organizations who are not spending energy and effort and money and time on that are really not going to be able to recruit and retain the people. Team 5.
So Team 5 actually had a 2-pronged approach, really to show that we are making an investment in the folks, as well as we value them. The way we show that we are making investment is really hard dollars. It starts with compensation and goes into all different flexible ways of benefits. And that's comparable, and you really put money where your mouth is. The second part is soft, but it's value, and it really goes very, very long with the millennials and the Gen Zs. And that is really hone in attributes like coaching, training, culture, flexibility, and above all, a clear and transparent career development.
Wow, that was impressive. Do you pronounce your name Bhaskar?
Yeah, Bhaskar Mukhopadhyay.
That was brilliant. That was a strategy. You just created a strategy for an organization, and it's so important. There needs to be hard dollars. You know, some of the organizations that are saying, you know, we're not finding people like want to pay minimum wage. Well, you know, if people can make $20 an hour somewhere else, why are they going to take minimum wage? And clearly, all the things you talked about, feedback, coaching, just giving, you know, listening to people, giving them advice, making sure your door is open for them. It's so important. I mean, those are just really great things. Well, I see that we're definitely sort of running out of time, and I so apologize for that. But I don't think we have a lot of time for questions because we've gone over our time, but I wanted to make sure you had my contact information, david.pease@bangor.com, given you my cell number, and you can definitely connect with me on social media. I will certainly answer any questions. You can send them to Molly or Julie, and you know, they can send them to me, and I have no problem kind of responding to the group, or if you have individual questions, I certainly would be willing to respond to your questions. Julie, I know, is willing to send this PowerPoint to you all so you can have it. One of the slides I didn't cover with you was what are some of the changes going to really look like in 2030. There's going to be some big changes in the way that work looks in just 10 years from now. So part of it is understanding that and helping your organizations. And for those of you who are in leadership or will be in leadership, it's really important to know how the workforce is changing over the next 9 years. So I just really want to thank you. You guys came up with great ideas. So I know our state is in really good hands with you all coming up and helping solve some of these upcoming issues within our work environment over the next 10 years. I hope I've given you some insight, but thank you so much to being here, and thank you so much for your participation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate you.
All right, thanks everyone for being here. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.